it's okay. It's okay, don't worry. I, too, am a former gay. So, as former gays, you must come walk with me. Walk with me, hand in hand, down Nostalgia Lane. Well, hello there. Welcome to Alyssa Jane's Reviews. My name is Alyssa, and this is my Pride Month edition of Nostalgia Lane, a monthly series of videos in which I rewatch and review a film that I used to love in my past but have not seen it in a long time. This month, in the Pride edition of Nostalgia Lane, I am rewatching and reviewing But I'm a Cheerleader, a film from 1999, which I didn't see until the early to mid 2000s, but I'll get into more of those sorts of details in just a minute. First, a quick review of the format of Nostalgia Lane. So I'll do the part one where I tell you why I chose this film for review. Part two, I will tell you what I thought of the film when I first saw it to the best of my recollection. And part three, I will tell you about my experience rewatching it and what I think of it now after my rewatch. And then part four, I will give my rating out of 10. So without further ado, let me dive into this with part one, why I chose this film. Okay, so initially I thought about this for Nostalgia Lane several months ago because I was just kind of, browsing through my Xfinity TV thing, and But I'm a Cheerleader popped up as a featured film on Peacock. And I was like, wow, I would really love to watch this film again. Hey, I should do that for Nostalgia Lane. But you know what? I should save it for June so that I can do a special Pride edition of Nostalgia Lane. It seemed like a great idea, although then I had to wait patiently to watch it. It was a few months ago. I don't remember exactly when it was. So I was really looking forward to doing this for Pride Month, and here we are. And so I'm doing it. So before I get into part two, I just wanted to give a little bit of a warning. You probably may have already noticed if you've seen the time on this video, how long it is. I don't know how long it's going to be at this point because I'm just starting to record, but I know what I have to say. So I suspect it's going to end up clocking in as the longest Nostalgia Lane video that I have done because I do have a lot to say as far as how it relates to my personal journey and how that relates to where I was in my personal journey as far as realizing who I am and then coming out back then, and then again how it relates to me in my personal journey now having gone to the point where I have come out and I've transitioned and I'm public. So there will be a lot of personal relation to this film happening in this video, more so than other Nostalgia Lane reviews that I have done. So get ready for that. But it is Pride Month. Happy Pride, happy Pride, happy Pride. And if you're watching this in the future, it's not Pride Month anymore. Happy Pride anyways. All right, let's go ahead and move on over to part two, what I thought of the film when I first saw it. Okay, now part two, what I thought of the film when I first saw it. And this is going to be a little bit longer because I have a lot of preamble to kind of set the scene for you, like where I was as far as my awareness of who I am and where I was on my journey to eventually accepting who I am and then eventually deciding to transition and to come out. So I don't remember exactly what year it was I saw this. It's one of two time periods. It might have been the same time period that I saw Almost Famous for the first time, which is the one I did a couple months ago, which would have been 2001 when I was temporarily staying at my parents' house for a month, because I have some vague memories of having seen this at my parents' house. But I also question what mainstream cable channel would have been showing this film in 2001. So it's also possible that I saw it on the Independent Film Channel, which I had at the home I was living in 2005. So it was one of those time periods. But regardless of which year it was, I was in a similar place as far as accepting who I was, and I was I had no idea. Like, I was still, I knew that I liked to dress in women's clothing, and had been fighting that my whole life because I wanted to be normal, and so I was trying to, get rid of that part of me. But it still kept coming up, and so I was still struggling with that. I hadn't, at that point, probably hadn't even heard the term transgender yet. Probably didn't understand that I was a part of the LGBTQ community. Didn't really understand what I was at this point. But one thing that I did really enjoy watching was lesbian romances. Lesbian rom-coms to a lesser degree, but just more like serious lesbian romance films, much more so than heterosexual romance films, and even more so than gay male romance films. Like, I actually never saw Brokeback Mountain, to be perfectly honest with you. So I was into lesbian romance films, and at the time, I just believed that my affinity for these types of films was for the same reasons that apparently all straight men liked seeing, lesbians get together. So I was just I just was told that I was just the same as all the other men who liked watching lesbian films, and I didn't think there was anything different about me. But in retrospect, there was, because I never ever was interested in lesbian porn, hard porn, nor soft porn. I wasn't interested in watching two girls go at it just for the sake of it. What I was interested in was two women meeting each other. Oftentimes, one of them doesn't realize that they're gay and they're starting to come out, and falling in love, and going through some of the hardships that a normal, relationship would go through, and then culminating in just a huge romantic, love-making scene. Not even really a sex scene as much as a love-making scene. And I can relate this to myself now in thinking that I always wanted to be a part of that. And I realize now that I wanted to be one of those women, where I don't necessarily think that most ordinary straight men who I was kind of categorized with were thinking that they really, really wanted to become one of those women, especially in a fallen in love type situation, not just a sexual thing. There's just two women falling in love was just the most beautiful thing for me that I could ever see. So, and I didn't think that I could ever be a part of that. Now, to be fair, I will never actually be a part of two cis women falling in love, because, and that is a little different, because it's different, and being a cis woman is a different experience than being a trans woman. So it is a little different, but mainly it's the female energy and the female energy coming together that I find so beautiful, and I can still be a part of that. But I didn't think at the time that I ever actually could be, because I didn't know that being a woman was an option for me. I just thought that was off the table back then. So then we come to this film. I often had sought out lesbian romances, but this one I didn't actually seek out. I just stumbled upon it. As again, I don't remember when and where I was exactly when I first saw it, but I do remember that I didn't seek it out, that I just started watching it, and it was close to the beginning of the movie, and I saw the scene when she is making out with her boyfriend, and she's like, oh, it is kind of the funniest I don't really want to kiss you scene that I've ever seen, where she's like, oh, having a really hard. It's actually really hilarious, and I saw that and I was like, is she a lesbian? Is that why she's having such a hard time kissing this dude? And then a couple minutes later in the film, that's when they have the intervention, and they all get together and say, Megan, we think you're a lesbian. And then I was like, oh, cool, maybe this is a lesbian romance movie, cool. And then I just started watching it, and after I watched it, I would watch it several times again after that. Because I love this movie for reasons I'm about to get into. But what I found my first time watching it was it was the best lesbian romance that I had seen at that time, and I wasn't even seeking it out because it was partially a story about one of the partners, going through self-discovery and discovering that she is a lesbian. And I will relate that to myself when I get to part 3, because I can do so in retrospect. I couldn't do it at that particular time. So it was a journey of self-discovery for her, while also falling in love with this woman, and culminating in one of the best lovemaking scenes that I had seen up at that time, with a really beautiful song. I should look up what that song is now. It reminds me a lot of the Sia song "Breathe," but I think it predates "Breathe," and it, instead of the piano, it's like a violin, and I must have got this on videotape or something, because I remember replaying that over and over and over, because I remember watching I was just so touched by that scene. That and the ending scene where she comes and does the cheer. I just thought that was so romantic. And I am able to analyze that scene and look at it more deeply now too, in retrospect, which I will also get into in part 3. So those two scenes, both with that same song we're playing, were just really touched me. And as a bonus to that, which is the main reason that I wanted, this is what I wanted the film to be when I started watching it, and the main reason I was watching it, as a bonus, it was a brilliant comedy. I remember, especially with RuPaul, who plays, he is not in drag in this film. And he's the one who has the line that I quoted at the beginning of this. I too am a former gay, which I found hilarious. And the scenes with him and what's her name? Mary, I think is her name, the one who runs the camp, and her son, who was just so obviously gay, and obviously the reason why she started this camp to begin with was just that her son is so obviously gay. And the scenes with RuPaul watching this, and go, oh, like when he gets that rake, and it's like he puts it over like it's this big giant dick, and he starts like caressing it, and the looks on RuPaul's face is just so funny. And it was funny because it just shows how ridiculous that line of thinking is, that people can be converted from gay. I too am a former gay. That these people actually seem to believe. Mary seemed to believe, and RuPaul, I think Mike maybe was the character's name, I don't remember. They actually generally seem to believe that you can cure gayness. And this film brilliantly showed how ridiculous that idea actually is. So it really kind of just took a picture of homophobes and mocked them and made fun of them, and really did an effective job of showing why their point of view is so ridiculous by making us laugh at it. And there was just so many comical scenes in this film with people, trying to pretend not to be gay when they really are, and just shows how ridiculous the whole thing was. So I ended up laughing a lot, and I fell in love with this film immediately, because not only was it the beautiful lesbian romance that I was looking for, but it was funny, and it made an important point in a really humorous way. So I ended up loving this film, and then rewatching it several times. And as I said, those specific scenes I would rewatch again and again. But I fell in love with this film immediately. Okay, so here's part 3. What I thought of the film after my rewatch, and I am going to do a deep dive of my feelings of this film in relationship to what I now know about my own identity and my own personal journey. However, before I dive into that, I have to start off by pointing out that Natasha Leone from Russian Doll is in this movie? What? Like, I just found that out literally, like, what was that, a month ago or so, when Natasha Leone was hosting Saturday Night Live. She hosted the season finale, so sometime in May. And she was talking about how she's been a in her monologue at the beginning, she's talking about how she's been a lifelong, actor, and just all the things that she did when she was a kid. And she's like, yeah, and I did this cult classic, but I'm a cheerleader. And I was like, what? What do you mean? And then I looked it up, and it totally is her. She plays Megan, the cheerleader. And watching this film now, I can't tell that it is her. She's a completely different human being now than she was then. Every once in a while, she'll do like a little laugh or something, or she'll go like "ha," and then it's like she'll channel her inner Natasha Leone from Russian Doll, like the modern day Natasha Leone. But for the most part, it is a completely different human being. I even saw a YouTube video recently of Natasha Leone where she had blonde hair, straight blonde hair now, and she still looks nothing like Megan. Like, it's hard to imagine that it's the same human being. Just every once in a while, she would say something that would remind me of the current day Natasha Leone, but otherwise, man, she has changed. So I never knew that. My mind is blown by this. Anyways, so let's dive into it. I love how the film is structured, where they have the different parts, like part one, accepting, and it is framed as if it is the different steps of this program, the True Directions program, that's going to, get the gay out of you or whatever. But watching it now, it occurred to me that it kind of, a lot of that really coincides with the actual steps of a journey that an LGBTQ person will come to as they, learn to accept themselves. So part one, accepting that you are gay is the first step. Or in my case, accepting that I was trans. And that took me 40 years. So this character, Megan, does it much faster than I do. Oh, and which, by the way, I should point out, both back then when I saw it and on my rewatch, I really appreciate the irony that this whole point of this True Directions program was to knock the gay out of Megan, but what it actually does is help her to accept who she is. It does the exact opposite of that, which I also thought was brilliant. The first step is her, like, accepting. There's that scene where she goes, I'm a lesbian. It's like realizing what she is. Well, that's actually the realization. Then later is really when she accepts that it's okay to be a lesbian. So I went through that too. First realizing that I am trans, and then accepting that it's okay that I am trans. So those are actually two different parts. So she does that later in the film. And I really related to this journey, and I think it's a similar journey that anyone in the LGBTQ community goes through, and then we all are faced with choice, and it is a choice that is brought up by I forget the name of the character. It was the two underground homo railroad dudes, as Megan calls it, and not Richard Mole from Night Court, but the really short guy. When they're in the van and they're taking them out to the bar, he says to them, so we just wanted to present you with an alternative perspective, but the choice ultimately is yours. And the choice that he's presenting them with is not to be gay or not to be gay, because you're gay. You just are. There's not a choice in that. But the choice is accept who you are and live openly, which obviously is what this character had chosen. Or to go ahead and go along with this program and just live a lie and pretend to be straight. This character didn't put it that way bluntly, but I think someone else did. Living a lie. I think maybe Graham did at this point. He seemed to really have empathy for those who would choose to live a lie. even though that's not the choice he made, because he would understand what the appeal would be to that. He understood why someone would be afraid to live as themselves in the current social climate. And this is what in the late 90s, and still hasn't changed much today. But in that current social climate, he would understand why one would choose to live in the closet and want to pretend to be straight. He seemed to have empathy for that position, even though he would hope that they would choose to live openly as he did. He wouldn't condemn you for choosing to live in the closet. So he wanted to offer that choice. And then later in the movie, when that one dude gets kicked out because he's too flamboyantly gay, he would never pass as a straight person. I forget the name of that character as well. But he doesn't have empathy for that position. He's like, you guys are a bunch of liars. Congratulations for lying and for fooling everybody. And gets really pissed off with that one guy who's like hitting on him. And he's like, the last thing I need right now is to be hit on by some dude who just convinced a bunch of people that he's straight. And that was a good scene too. But it shows a different point of view. And I can understand why people would have both points of view. And personally, I could understand why someone would choose to live in the closet. But now that I have finally made the decision to transition and live openly as who I am, I would encourage people to do the same, but would understand and have empathy for someone who chose not to. And I guess I'm in the same position as Richard Mole's partner. I forget the name of the character, the short dude, with the kind of short cross-eyed dude. But I guess I would be in the same position as him, where I would have empathy for someone who would choose to stay in the closet. So it's an interesting choice that is presented in this film that I think every single person who is LGBTQ must go through that at some point in time. You must make that decision to stay in the closet or to come out and just live freely as who you are. More and more people these days are choosing to live freely, especially within the trans community, and that is why I was able to come out as trans, because I was seeing more and more people around me able to do that, and then it started to feel like it was okay for me to do it, despite the fact that now more than ever trans people are being attacked in the government, in the media, and I think it is as a reaction to the fact that there are more and more openly trans people in the world. So you take the good with the bad. So we can only hope that one day we move beyond this and people can just live openly and everybody will be accepting of it. But that's a dream at this point in time. But anyways, watching this journey that Megan takes in this film, I could really, really resonate with that as the journey that any LGBTQ person must take. And she did it, as I said, much faster than I did. It took me 40 years to come to that conclusion. Over 40 years, actually. Now, as far as the romance and the scenes that I mentioned earlier, just as beautiful to me now as they were then. And the scene at the end where Megan goes and does the cheer for Graham, I find even more beautiful now than I did then. Because earlier in the movie, Megan tells Graham that the one thing that she loves more than anything is the cheer. That's the one thing that really makes her happy. And she said, I know it sounds silly. And Graham's like, no, it's not silly. And I believe Graham, because I think when you find something that really makes you truly happy and makes you shine inside, there's nothing more beautiful than being able to share that with another human being and have it be fully accepted, no matter how silly it may seem to a lot of other people. A lot of other people might look at cheerleading as a really silly thing to be really happy about, but to connect with another human being on that level, that this is a thing that brings joy to my heart, even if it might seem silly to other people, and to have someone understand and connect with that. That was a really beautiful and touching moment in the film. So, and then Graham says, I would love to see you cheer one time. And then for her to come out and do the cheer written specifically for Graham, and so it's like a poem, a love poem to Graham, but in cheer form. But it's coming deeply from her heart. Something that she's already shared with Graham brings joy to her heart and makes her really, really happy. It's one place where she always found happiness. And then to share that with Graham, of course that convinced Graham to go join her. Of course it did. Like, how could you not at that point? How could you turn Megan away at that point? So I had a tear. I had a tear down my eye watching this film for my rewatch during that part, because it is so beautiful. And you might say, oh, well, doing a cheer is silly, but you're missing the point if you think it's too silly, because it is her sharing what brings joy to her heart with this other person and bringing her into it. And it was incredibly beautiful. And I had a tear down my eye. Now, the little critic came onto my head that, you do suspend disbelief because the Mary, I think is the name of the lady who runs the camp, lets Megan get out this whole really long cheer before she goes, Megan, get out of here! I'm gonna hunt you down! Like, she would have done that immediately. She never would have let her say this whole long cheer, but if she didn't, then the movie wouldn't happen. So you gotta suspend disbelief. But the little critic in my head did go off. But, we suspend disbelief because it was such a beautiful scene. And as far as the comedy of this film, still the same. I still found the same scenes funny now that I found back then, especially the RuPaul and the gay son scenes, and just like how hard he was trying to be straight, the gay son character, and just how miserably he was failing at it. So I still think that this film made a great point by using humor, although now I did have to, I do have to think about the fact that since I know a little bit more about conversion therapy, which this was kind of a comedic form of conversion therapy. I don't know that there are actually camps like this in existence, but it is a form of conversion therapy, and conversion therapy in real life is not funny, and it does lead to people killing themselves. So it is a very serious topic, and it's a very dangerous thing in real life, and a really horrifying thing in real life. So I think we need to keep that in mind, not to take it too lightly, but I also think I feel it's okay to point out how ridiculous conversion therapy is by making it look ridiculous and mocking it. So ultimately, I'm okay with it, but I did have to think about that a little bit more, because I was a little less aware of conversion therapy at the first time that I saw this movie. So I still absolutely am in love with this film, and the music was good. It reminded me of like my old 90s alternative days. Like, there's a lot of like 1990s alternative music that was really well used in this film. I guess my only minor complaint in my rewatch would be it's too short. It's like an hour and 40 minutes. It's like the same length of the season finale or volume 1 finale of Stranger Things season 4. So it's like this. I think it's also an hour and 40 minutes. So, which for a movie was a little short. I wish they could have developed that romance between Graham and Megan just even a little bit more. Maybe taking a little bit more time with it to let it really breathe and really develop. They kind of maybe rushed it just a touch. It still works for me overall. The scenes that I mentioned before are still really beautiful to me, but that would be my only critique, I guess, of the film. I might change that, or maybe add a little bit more meat to that story. But other than that, I still absolutely love this film. So now, with all that said, let's go ahead and move on to part 4, where I give my rating. Okay, let's wrap this up with my rating out of 10. And this is based off of my recent rewatch of the film. So my rating out of 10, of 1 being the lowest possible score and 10 being the highest possible score. I'm going to give it a 9.5, the rare 0.5 for my Nostalgia Lane reviews. I was strapped between a 9 and a 10. I don't quite feel like giving it a 10 because I do wish that there was a little bit more development in that love story, as much as I did love it and find it beautiful. So I wasn't finding a 10 to feel quite right. A 9, like I had given other films, I think I gave Shawshank Redemption a 9, and Clue maybe I gave a 9, and I forget what else, but I feel like it's better than any of those other ones, so therefore, it is a 9.5. I love this movie. I love this movie. It is my favorite LGBTQ movie that I've ever seen. But I made a list of a bunch of good ones that I need to watch. So there's a bunch out there that I haven't seen yet. Mainly because I am drawn to the lesbian romances. So there's like other ones that aren't lesbian romances that I would also like to watch that I've had recommended. But at this point in time, it is my favorite LGBTQ plus film ever, and I absolutely love it. And it is a 9.5 out of 10. All right, thank you so much for joining me this month on Nostalgia Lane. Next month, we return to the normal Nostalgia Lane videos where it won't be Pride Month anymore. And I am going to watch a film which I believe, off the top of my head, came out in the same year, which was 99, and could be mistaken, it might be 2000. But it is a film that some of you may be surprised that I haven't seen in a long time, if you know that I am a huge Star Trek fan. And no, it is not a Star Trek film, but it is Galaxy Quest. I want to go back and rewatch Galaxy Quest because it's been far too long. Now, I think one of the reasons it's been a long time is because I do have some personal issues with the film's star, Tim Allen, and some of his like personal and political views that he's expressed. But I think that I'm going to separate the artist from the art, and I really want to watch this film because it was such an amazing parody of the Star Trek fandom. And it's been too long, so I would like to go back and revisit Galaxy Quest. So that will be next month's Nostalgia Lane. I hope that you subscribe if you have not already, so you can get all of that. You can ring the bell for the notifications. I say ring all the time. It's like click the bell or whatever for your notifications, so you know when my Nostalgia Lane comes out, my trans videos come out, my Star Trek videos come out, all that stuff. And please give a little like, comment, but be nice, and I will see you all very, very soon. Goodbye.